Hello, everybody. This is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age, and welcome to the latest installment of our Purpose Marketing Hits and Misses feature. Joining me, as usual, is our regular guest, Thomas Kolster, who is the founder and creative director at Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency, which advises companies and organizations on how to turn environmental, societal, and health risks into market opportunities. Welcome, Thomas.
Good to see you, EJ. Happy 25.
Our first episode of the year. So let's not waste any time. Let's get started with, of course, some hits. Our first one comes from the agency St. Luke's of London, and it's for their client, the plant-based food brand This, which in this spot injects some fun into the category with some help from an energetic and quite over-the-top protagonist. Let's take a watch.
I loved being at the top of real estate, but always wondered what was beyond the horizon. Then I tried This Isn't Pork Sausages. I thought if they could make them taste this good, then anything is possible. So now I'm a wingsuit flyer.
100% plant-based and so damn tasty. This changes everything. Exclusive overnight wingsuit flying abilities, cliff jumping expertise, and extreme sports insurance.
All right, so a little bit of a head fake at the beginning of that spot. I wasn't sure when I watched this what kind of category this was for. Was it real estate? What was it? But clearly, you know, we've seen a lot of plant-based food advertising in the last few years. They're clearly trying to go the humor route. And why did you like this one?
It definitely did trick me to begin with this at first as well. I absolutely hated the acting to begin with. We talked about it before as well, that this idea of normalizing plant-based food and using humor as well. And instead of sort of focusing on a big value crusade or why you necessarily need or why your values align with, for example, eating plant-based, it just goes head on in terms of it tastes great, make fun out of it. So it's really like a nice piece of work that appeals to the mainstream and hopefully gets more people interested in eating plant-based. So spot on.
Good. Let's continue on with our next hit. This is something that starts out a little bit unusual. Again, you're not going to find too many slugs starring for financial brands, but Wealthsimple pulls it off with a charming spot that comes from production company Epoch Films. Let's take a watch.
So, that morning, I'm flying, cruising. And of course, that's when, boom, a literal boulder in my path. I was thinking at that point, I can't. I literally cannot. After everything I'd already been through, there was the raindrop. There was that crack, and then to top it off, Marty just blows past me. Hey, man. Do you ever wonder how everyone does it? Because we all know it never gets easier. Life just keeps throwing stuff at you. Things just keep happening. There is no stopping it. What are you gonna do? You keep going. And then at some point, you look around and you realize I just made it across the sidewalk.
I think that's a really nice ad. Of course, you know, talking animals and sex is nothing new in advertising, but I just really like the way they executed this one. I assume you agree, Thomas. Why did you like this one?
I definitely do. I mean, I even went on to YouTube and there was somebody who said that this is probably the first time I've been emotionally moved by a slog, and I completely agree. So, you know, in a time where I think everything is fast editing and shorter than your face, it's just a really cute, compelling narrative. And if we think about it, the story is probably one of the most sort of cliche-like stories about how it's difficult to succeed. But they just, the narration, everything just comes beautifully together, and it feels authentic, and you actually feel compelled to go and know more about what Wealthsimple can do. So I think this is just a celebration of what creativity can do and how it can cut through in a category that is often filled with fast music and lots of cliches.
Yeah, let's hope we see more of that. We're in the middle of tax season here in the U.S., so we're getting slammed with a bunch of tax preparation ads.
Yeah,
hope that this level of inspiration continues in that category. Moving on to our last hit, comes from an organization called CI, which is a nonprofit dedicated to saving migrants that have attempted to swim across the Mediterranean. Very serious issue. And this spot begins by showing a man teaching his son to swim, then it evolves into something much more serious. Let's take a watch.
ايدي ساخ بابا، ايدي ساخ، ما تخافش. حرك. اي صحيتك صحيتك. وحدك يا بابا. اي صحيتك صحيتك هكاك هكاك. حوته يا بابا، كي الحوته صحيتك صحيتك هكاك هكاك. كمل كي الحوته يا بابا، كمل.
بابا شوف معاك الحوته.
كمل يا بابا، كي الحوته يا بابا. كي الحوته.
الحوتة كيما الحوتة.
All right, Thomas, let's talk about this one. Why do you think this one works?
I mean, it's a trick I often see in similar ads where you're dealing with strategies where it's really hard to sort of identify yourself with what's happening. So what they do is that they make it personal. They try and put you and I in obviously the shoes of immigrants or refugees. So I think it's a very, very powerful piece that makes the destiny of actually so many people on this planet, and both immigrants and refugees numbers are rising across the planet. So I think it delivers a really powerful message, and it makes you think, you feel with the person, and you actually do feel the urge to donate. So it's one of those spots where I was like, where's that donation button? So very, very effectful. And so it's a trick often used, but it's just so well done in this specific example.
Of course, this is a European-focused ad, but given the political climate in the U.S. right now, this is going to be a challenge for similarly situated nonprofits on this side of the globe that are trying to humanize the immigration issue. What would be your advice to folks trying to do that right now?
As I said, I think this is one of the key insights. Make it personal is always one of the things that do work. We see that in the political sphere as well, where you often have politicians mentioning, for example, a worker or someone else going into a McDonald's restaurant and serving cheeseburgers. So you're trying to put yourself in the shoes of those folks that you want to communicate to. So make it personal and humanizing these very, very difficult and challenging topics is a good way of cutting through.
All right, we'll keep an eye out for sure on this issue this year, for sure. I'm sure you will as well. We'll try to take a look at some other videos around this one in the coming months. But moving on to our misses, our first one comes from the website development platform Wix, which in an ad from First Avenue Machine depicts how people turn inspiration, hobbies, and homemade recipes into business ideas with some help from the brand. Let's watch.
Big ideas don't come easy. But when you get one, use that moment of clarity to create a new reality. To turn your pastime into your full-time. Your personal style into your signature brand. Your homemade recipe into a household name. Your daydream into your dream job. Your talent into a movement. From taking the first step to seeing it all come together, you can do it yourself. Wix.
All right, so I feel like this one is kind of typical of what we see with these kinds of brands, right? Which are often zero in on the small business owner or the entrepreneur. But why didn't you like this one? The way that Wix went about it.
Yeah, you know what? I've often talked about this idea that brands should help people on the journey, be the coach, be the ones that sort of backs the dreams. So sometimes, and why I like to bring this example was that sometimes that really works on paper, but it just doesn't work in reality. Because it's almost like it gets stuck in this sort of cliche written narrative that doesn't really seem that believable or authentic. So I think it's a good little reminder that sometimes what works on paper doesn't really work when you actually put it into execution. And so it might be right, but it just misses on the executional part. Plus, there is just something about using "do it" as a bad riff of Nike that just bothers me terribly.
So was this spot like too chaotic? Were they trying to get too much in at once, or what was the tone? What about the tone?
You know, the thing is, the thing is, if you look at it, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a school assignment that's sort of like everything is all right, but it's just not great. And I think when it comes to communication, the key part is it needs to be emotional. Do I feel this ad? Do I feel it's authentic? I mean, good old David Ogilvy said, "Don't buy from a clown." And in some ways, in this way, I'd probably say, don't buy from somebody who's pulling stock imagery at you.
Okay. Moving on. Our next up is a video from a car brand, Mini AGMC in Dubai. I believe this is where this one comes from. And it attempts to show how henna art can inspire self-breast examinations. The brand and the agency, which is Service Plan, partnered with a henna artist on this video. Let's take a watch.
There are patterns all around us to keep us safe, to guide us, like henna, pattern woven deep in our culture as a symbol of health. A tradition that started as a way to wish for women's well-being. Mini, in collaboration with Dr. Ezra, presents Biatik, a self-exam guide in henna, strung by mini acts of big love. The Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're turning patterns cast in culture into a handy self-exam ritual. There's no bigger act of love than keeping your health in check. Because with early detection comes empowerment. Take your health in your own hands.
So we've, on this previous episode, we've taken a look at, I know in the past, some really good kind of breast cancer awareness type campaigns, but this one missed the mark in your view. Why?
You know, there's some things it gets right. So first of all, kudos for Mini for supporting this issue in the first place, right? And secondly, you know, in some ways it is on brand. I mean, Mini is always trying to sort of infuse and insert itself into sort of culture, design, and art. Where it doesn't really tick the box for me is, what are we trying to achieve here? We are trying to get more women to self-examine, and I think it's quite a D route to try and set up in a showroom a henna artist and then sort of draw self-examination signs on women's hands. It just seemed like a a quite a lot of effort going into very, very little effect. So I'm really sort of questioning the impact and the ROI of this investment in terms of actually doing something about these issues. And that's something that often bothers me when something becomes too advertising and too little actually focused on the impact. And this is when nonprofits and brands, when they collaborate, really need to ask each other some hard questions.
Yeah, like trying too hard, I think, and just losing sight of the practicality of this, right? I mean, obviously a great cause, and obviously you want to, we applaud creativity when it comes to these causes, but it has to be creativity that makes sense, right?
It's focused on impact. And yes, one can argue that if I run around with a henna tattoo with a one of those 6 self-examination tricks that they added there, are we then hitting more people? I'm doubtful about the whole effort. Unfortunately, I applaud the brand fit and etc. But there's something on the impact side that's missing in this one.
All right, our last miss of this episode. We're going to look at how the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation raises awareness for rising sea levels, as well as its attempt to become a FIFA member nation by the year 2030. Let's watch this video, which comes from BETC Paris.
Lost in the middle of the Pacific, the Marshall Islands face a unique challenge. For years, we were the last country on Earth without a national football team.
We wanted that to change. Now we have a national federation, a field, and players, but we still can't play.
Marshall Islands remain unrecognized by any international organization. Because in football, processes take time. Too much time. And with sea levels rising, our island might disappear before our team is ever acknowledged. To bring people's attention to our reality, we designed a jersey highlighting the treasures of our islands.
We made this jersey to bring attention to a team fighting to be seen. So to make it as visible as possible, we decided to make it disappear.
Marshall Islands Soccer Federation and sport brand Player Layer present the No Home jersey. For its reveal, we did what all football teams do when introducing a new jersey. An advertising campaign, promoting it across all our platforms. What people didn't notice at first was that with each new post, a part of the jersey gradually disappeared. Like our lands, being swallowed by rising seas. Picture after picture, it became impossible to ignore.
We cannot slow down rising sea levels, but by sharing our story with the world, we can speed up recognition of our team.
Discover the full story and order our jersey at rmi.soccer.
All right, Thomas, fire away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy if, to discuss this case. I feel it's one that probably belongs more in the world of advertising than in the world of reality, in the sense that I don't like the cliche, first up, disappearing islands, the disappearing jersey. I think that has probably been a bit overused and probably also a harder way to get any conversation going. So first up, I don't really buy into what they're trying to achieve. Secondly, I'm a curious fella, right? So I couldn't help but Google around, and when you don't really see a case like this that might have been made to generate PR or whatever really not taking off, then I sort of question the effects of this. Climate change is an important topic, and I think in this instance it just doesn't really fit what it is that they're trying to do. So one course trying to bring attention around the soccer team mixed with climate change, for me, does seem like a little bit too complicated and too much target an advertising jury somewhere in Cannes, rather than actually trying to help these poor fellas on the Marshall Islands.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to tackle a lot
Yeah.
with not much impact. Well, that'll do it for this month's episode. I'm EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. Thanks again to Thomas Kolster, who's the founder and creator of Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency. And as always, thanks to our producer, Lauren Ciardio. We'll be back with you in February for another episode of Purpose Hits and Misses. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.